Good evening, everybody. My name is Aidan Buckley. I'm the Manager of Communications and Engagement with the Sunshine Coast Regional District. I'd like to welcome all of you to this Let's Talk Water session tonight on the topic of water supply and projections. I'd like to start by acknowledging that we're joining you from the Seychelles and Squamish First Nations. So tonight what we're going to have is a presentation on water supply and projections, followed by a question and answer session. This session is being streamed live on YouTube. And also, as I said earlier, we're very keen to answer your questions throughout. So if you do have a question, you can put it in the Q&A that you're going to see at the bottom of your screen. And also the chat function is open too. But we would like for you to put them in the Q&A where possible. So I just want to kick off here by just going around the table to let you know of who you're going to be hearing from tonight. I'm going to start off with our chair, Laurie Pratt, and then on to Director Donna McMahon, on to Mia Ebrook, and then Remco Rosenboom, who's going to be taking us through a presentation. So over to you, Chair Pratt.
Okay, thank you very much, Aidan. I would like to thank you all for joining us this evening for our first Let's Talk Water session of this year. And we all know drinking water continues to be a top priority for the Sunshine Coast Regional District and our Sunshine Coast community. We have heard your feedback to fix the water problem, and we've put forward a number of initiatives in the past few years, and we are seeing positive results. It is important to note that these projects do take time through projects like the groundwater investigation and development of the new supply, but with the current results and projections, we know we are on the right path. We continue to seek a balanced approach, and we want to build a resilient water supply for all Sunshine Coast residents. For this reason, we know both expanding supply and pursuing water conservation will be more than important. It will be incredibly important to make sure that we have adequate drinking water now and into the future. We are looking forward to listening to your comments and your questions this evening. And I will pass it over next to Area E Director, Donna McMahon, to comment as well.
Oh, here I am in Elphinstone, where we have two kinds of states. We either have too much water or not enough water. So it's a challenge. Water is a challenge. We knew that coming in, and we wish we could wave a magic wand and address it instantly, but we can't do that. So it's taking a while, but I think we're making a whole lot of progress. Thanks.
Now we're going over to Mia.
Great. My name's Mia Ebrook. I'm the Manager of Strategic Initiatives. It's a division that looks at long-term planning, including our water supply planning and water conservation initiatives. And just thank you so much to everyone for being here tonight. I'll pass it over to Remco.
And I'll first pass it over quickly to our CEO, Dean McKinley.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Remco. My name is Dean McKinley. I'm the Chief Administrative Officer here at the Sunshine Coast Regional District. I've had the incredible privilege to live on the Sunshine Coast since last January, and it's become very, very evident to me, even before I arrived, and certainly since I've arrived, how important water supply is to residents of the Sunshine Coast. I welcome all of you that are here, and all of you that end up viewing this online, for what is an incredibly important discussion. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Dean. As indicated, I'm by Aidan, I'm the Remco Rosenboom, General Manager of Infrastructure Services. And thanks for everybody for listening or listening at later and watching this at a later time. And I would like to share my screen now to provide you with an update on where we are at the moment in terms of addressing the water supply situation on the coast. Is everybody able to see my screen? Yep, okay. One of the key objectives of the SCRD strategic plan is to address the water supply situation on the coast. Over the last several years, significant investments have been made for our water supply infrastructure. Last year in May, we had a Lostock Water event in which we presented the integrated approach that we're taking to address our water supply situation on the coast to ensure that we have a sustainable drinking water source now and in the future. This approach includes developing new water sources, water conservation, and operational improvements. The purpose of today's presentation is to provide an update on some of these projects and provide more detailed insight about some scenarios of how the future could look like for water supply on the coast. So, first of all, a brief description of the Chapman water system. The Chapman water system is the main water system for residents on the coast, and it provides the majority of about 90% of the residents with water. And this is the system that we have the most issues with in terms of providing a sufficient water supply during the summers right now, and we predict that that will only increase moving forward. So the graphs you can see here, the blue line depicts the amount of water that we have available in Chapman Creek during the drought, during a dry summer, while the green line shows the demand. So you can see that between June and October, the green line is above the blue line, which means that the demand exceeds the amount of supply we currently have available in the Chapman system. This is the reason why we are doing all the water supply expansion and conservation projects we currently have on the go. The gap between the blue and the green line, we call that the water supply deficit, the amount of water we are short to provide the community with sufficient amount of water. So it's really the summer drought that we're looking at. If you look at the last 6 years, as is depicted here, 3 times we were in stage 3 and 3 times we had to go even to stage 4 to address our water supply situation on the coast and to ensure that we actually had enough water to continue to provide the community with enough water until the end of the summer. What's causing this situation? It's really the changing climate that is a big factor in all of this. Our population on the coast is growing slowly, as well as since 2016, there's a regulatory requirement to provide an adequate amount of water in the lower parts of Chapman Creek to protect the fish species present there. The objective set in 2018 for our approach to our addressing a water supply deficit is that we want to limit the impacts to the community by not exceeding stage 2 water conservation regulations. So stage 2 should be the maximum that we get to during a drought summer. That's the intent that the SCRD is aiming for at the moment. So in 2019, the SCRD organized a dialogue with the community on water, which was called the Water Dialogue. This slide lists the top 10 items that we heard from the community where the SCRD should focus on. As you can see, we rated them in terms of our progress on those items. And as you can see, most of them we achieved substantial progress or already have been completed. Number 1 indicates act now. We've done numerous projects and did significant investment in addressing our water supply situation on the coast. Number 2 is diversify the water supply situation. That's what we're doing. And as you can see later, we're exploring all sorts of water supply sources on the coast and are making decisions to advance some of them. So I can go through the list, but we're more than happy to expand on this with any of you offline. So our approach has multiple components. We're trying to develop new sources. We are promoting behavioral change and water conservation, and we are doing our best to improve our own operations. So what can we do inside the organization? It is all about a balance between these 3 components. There's not one solution to to the situation. It's about finding new sources, improving our own operations, as well as increasing our water conservation efforts. And all of this costs a significant amount of money, funds. And so our entire effort is how can we spend the funds we have available as wisely as possible. That's always our main approach. So a brief update on our water supply expansion progress we made to date. Since 2019, we confirmed that our Church Road well field, which is located in the Granthams landings area, actually is very feasible. We're far ahead in the development, and we hope to get it online prior to the summer of 2022, which will reduce our water shortage for that summer already. Last fall, we explored the development of a well field in the Langdale area, actually on the BC Ferry terminal site. And if all things goes to plan, that site, we can develop 2 additional wells, and that site can be available there in full production in 2024, 2025. And there is a good opportunity for us to improve our water intake at Cray Creek. We currently have an intake structure there located, but the treatment capacity and capabilities on that site are not sufficient to really use that location a lot. So this would allow us to, this project would allow us to use that site also during the summer, during the entire summer. And as I can explain later in the presentation, we have to decide when we target that project to be completed. Besides these 3 projects, we're working to confirm the feasibility of a well field in the Elphinstone area, where we have to, the confirmation there is there actually an opportunity there to draw water from the aquifer in the area without creating an issue for other users of the area as well as the ecosystems. We continue our work on the raw water reservoir, and outside of the Chapman water system, but we're working on the development of new wells for our Eastbourne community on Keats Island. Overall, there are currently 6,200 properties in the SCRD with a water meter. The installation of meters in the Seashield area would add another 4,800 about to this number. So in total, we would have about 11,000 water meters all in total. So the water meter program would allow us to share those data more easily with customers, just like a program as currently is in place, for example, BC Hydro, where you can go online and look at your own consumption. And we're doing all kinds of engagement and education sessions to on the water metering program, as well as to water conservation in general. We have a very successful leak notification program, and there is an opportunity for the SCRD to review how we charge for water, our rate structure. Currently, everybody's paying flat rate, irregardless of the amount of water you use, and with water meters installed, that could change. We did an analysis based on the water meters we currently have available. So the water meters that we currently have available are all located within the rural areas. So within Pender, Half Moon Bay, Rhodes Creek, Elphinstone, and Howe Sound area. And as you can see in the graph here, there's about 9% of the people of the residences currently are using 38% of the water. And I have to say, a significant amount of those properties are properties with leaks. What we calculated based on the data from 2020, that a property with a leak on average uses 4 times more water than a property without the leak, which is a significant amount. So it's very well, money well invested to find those larger leaks and to try to address them. But there will continue to be properties without the leak that are using such a significant amount of water. Since the leak notification program began in 2017, we were able to, with support of the community, to fix about 2 leaks a day over the entire period, which is a substantial achievement in our opinion, from us as well as from the community, because it's primarily the community that has been addressing those leaks. So why the focus on water metering? Water metering really promotes conservation. After water meters are installed and a new rate structure were implemented, there's been studies done across Canada where it turns out that water users with meters are using about 65% less water than users without a water meter. Town of Gibson's installed meters already a while ago, and in Town of Gibson's, the demand was reduced with about 40%. In West Vancouver, it was done more recently. There, the summer demand dropped with about 30%, and the SCRD currently assumes the 30% reduction from 2010 levels with the completion of a water metering program. As you can see, for example, based on the data from Town of Gibson's or the average Canadian household, higher reduction rates could be achieved, but that's where we're not counting on. We're counting on the 30%, which to be on the conservative side. Now I'm going to make a switch to some projections for moving forward. We developed 2 scenarios, and both scenarios are based on the objective to stay at stage 2 and to avoid going to a stage 3 or 4 during the summer months. As indicated, the summer demand is usually higher than the average demand because the community just needs more water. The scenario is based on an extended drought of up to 6 months, and the current demand is about already 10% below what we're using in 2010. So we already, with the water conservation measures we achieved to date, we have already achieved about 13% reduction compared to 2010 levels. In terms of growth, the population on the coast continues to grow. Over the last several years, the average was less than 2%, but for the purpose of this study, of this analysis, we used the 2% annual growth prediction. And we assumed one of the scenarios that a water metering program would be fully implemented, which would include a pay-per-use rate structure. And as indicated before, the assumption is that with the completion of the meter installation in the seashield area and the remaining parts of the metering program, that we can achieve a 30% decrease in capital demand for the overall. So this is one of the scenarios we assessed, which we call the status quo scenario, where we assume that the installation of the water meters in the seashield area would not proceed and no use-based structure would be implemented. The way to meet the demand then is to develop the Langdale well field by 2024, and as well as the Grey Creek, to improve our treatment capacity at Grey Creek in 2024 as well. And based on our predictions, by 2026, 2027, we will already need a 3rd new well, because the yellow line is becoming higher than our total of all the colored areas underneath. So you can see that there is already a gap appearing there, which is the water supply deficit. If we reduce the demand in 2024, 2025 by implementing the metering program, the Grey Creek treatment improvements are not needed until 2032. So 6 years later, 6 to 8 years later than in the previous scenario. And the need for additional supply is not needed beyond Great Creek is not needed until 2039. So you can see that the reduction in demand in 2024 is having a significant impact on the need to expand our water supply moving forward. What are the capital costs associated with this project? The Great Creek, the surface water treatment upgrade, is currently estimated at about $2.5 million in terms of cost. The Langdale well field that we're currently starting to develop is estimated to cost just over $5 million. The Church Road well field that we hope to be able to start the construction of this summer will the costs are expected to be just over $7 million. The water meter installation in the Seashield area is also expected to cost just over $7 million. However, because of if we were to develop these supplies, additional supplies, and install the water meter installation in the Seashield area, there's no expansion needed of our Chapman water treatment plant. This would save us between $12.5 and $15 million. And in 2013, it was confirmed at that time that an expansion would be needed about now in early 2021, 2022. However, due to the conservation efforts we made to date, and if we can continue to make them by the installation of meters, there might be no need to expand that treatment plant capacity at all, which would be a big saving. And by some of these projects, primarily the Church Road well field development project, we're also saving about $1 million in the replacement of all the water mains. So if you look at the cost per cubic meter over a 6-month period in 2035 for an average summer, you can see that water meters are by far the cheapest way of getting extra water to the community. Church Road well field will cost about $19 a cubic meter, while the water metering program will be about $8, and Langdale and Great Creek are in the 12 to 13 cubic meter cost dollar per cubic meter area. The more we start using these wells, the Great Creek, Langdale, and Church Road sources, the lower, of course, their capital cost per cubic meter will be. But it looks like that Great Creek, Langdale, and Church Road are a little bit more expensive to develop than the water metering program. So in summary, scenarios with fully implementing water metering program in upcoming years compared to not doing so will eliminate the impacts on the community and economy of states 3 and 4. And we expect it to be the case in 2024, 2025. It's more effective than only increasing supply. Increasing supply is always needed, but by adding water metering program to it as well, it's really effective, cost effective. It will delay the investment we're required to develop to improve the Great Creek water intake from 2024 to 2032. So that's an 8-year delay in the need for that investment. And it's the same with the development of another water supply source. Instead of that we need to develop that in 2026, it might only be needed in 2039. So that's a significant delay in an investment of about $2.5 to $7.5 million, which will have significant financial benefits for the community. And as indicated, there's no need anymore to expand the water treatment plant capacity. And as recently, again, confirmed by the province to us, is that having a metering program in place will significantly improve the chance of receiving grants for water supply expansion projects. Without it in being placed, the province is less likely to provide us with grants for any of these projects. So what are we doing in terms of communication and engagement? You can find a lot of really updated information on the webpage scrd.ca/water. I strongly encourage you to follow us on social media if you have the availability to do so, because we're frequently posting updates on projects or other relevant information on there. Recently, we provided several advertisements in local news media, including the one here depicted that was published in the local weekly several weeks ago. And please engage with us at our new engagement platform, SCRD.ca, Let's Talk, where you can leave questions, ask questions to our staff, and we will get back to you. We'll provide a lot of updated information on there as well. So what are the next steps? We will continue to develop our water supply sources. Our loan request for the installation of the remaining meters in the seashell area is currently under review by the minister. We hope to receive that back in upcoming weeks and present it to the board soon after. And then if that's approved by the minister, dates for an AEP will be confirmed. And of course, we will continue our leak notification and program and sharing information with users. If you have a meter, please contact us, and we can make sure that you're ready. Or by email, you can get your monthly read data in your email box. So if you happen to have a meter and you would like to know your use, just connect with the SRD, and we'll make sure that you get those email notifications on your use in your email box. As indicated, Let's Talk, SCRD.ca, Let's Talk Water. We'll get a lot more information on the water metering program and other water projects in upcoming weeks. And we expect by the end of May to have another session like this one, but then primarily focused on the water metering program. And so stay tuned on the date for that, and that will be announced through social media as well as on Let's Talk Water, the Let's Talk SCRD side. So I think it's time now for question and answers. So I will stop sharing my screen and hand it back over to Aidan to lead the discussion.
Thanks, Remco. Really appreciate it. Just a reminder that if you would like to ask a question, you can just post it in the Q&A, or else you can raise your hand, and we can invite you to come on screen to answer the question itself. And Remco, just one thing I was just hoping that you may be able to clarify just in the presentation itself is around, a meter cubed. When we speak about a meter cubed, is there a way that we can, quantify that in any way? Is it, leaving your hose run for X amount of time? Is it X amount of basins of water? I know, sorry to put you on the spot here with that.
Take a bath.
A bath? Okay.
I would say take a bath, and then you more or less have a meter by a meter by a meter. So if you have a good sized bath, you will get close to a cubic meter of water.
Perfect. So we've got some questions coming in. We have some which kind of have come up in the past that we've also been seeing on social media. So I'm going to start with one of those, and how we're going to do the questions. I'm just going to put them out there, and whoever would like to go ahead and answer, please fire away and do so. Or if after somebody has already answered the question, if you'd like to add something, just have at it. So will we have water restrictions when we have more water supply?
Thank you. I will take that one. In terms of it, as indicated in the graph, it will depend on if we have certain water sources already developed. But I really hope that since after 2024, 2025, our intent is, regardless of the scenario we choose, we should not have water restrictions that exceed stage 2 at all. No watering restrictions at all is, I think, not an achievable objective at this point in time. There will always be some maybe required during the dry season, but we hope to we're aiming to keep that as a very, very, very minimal, because we know that there will be significant impacts to the community as a result of it.
And then, if I may, from a political standpoint, it's well, not just a political standpoint, but also a social and environmental standpoint. Water conservation, water is fresh, clean water is one of our most precious resources environmentally. And so I think we always need to look to the conservation lens and saving our water, because it is so crucial for the environment. Every living being, whether it be plant or human being or dog, cat, fish, we all need some level of fresh water. And just environmentally, I think it behooves us to look at conservation methods all the way, and conserve the water we have.
Great, thank you. We have a couple of questions coming in now on the Q&A. So I'm going to start with Adam Shepard, and the question is actually put to you, Remco. So it's asking if you could comment on the long-term raw water reservoir option.
Yes. So maybe as a refresher, in 2018, we started to work to develop a raw water reservoir, a big, large reservoir in the Chapman system that could capture the water that's running down Chapman Creek in the spring and snow melt, and so that we can use it in the summer to augment our supply. We're still proceeding with the project. The cost implications, the cost estimate as presented to the board, I think early last year, were that the project would cost about $50 million, a little over, and we're currently working with a contractor to refine that, and we're waiting for some provincial permits to do some further drilling in the area that we are looking at, and to see if we can refine that number. But we're still moving ahead with the project, and the board has not confirmed after this project phase is completed if they would like to advance the project at that time or not.
Perfect. Thank you, Remco. There's a question in here that I will ask. It's from an anonymous attendee, and potentially this person can maybe clarify a little bit more on their question itself. But we'll put it out there. Would it be a viable option, or would it be a viable solution for the district to allow Nestle access to our unrelenting supply in return for covering costs of our water meter program? Go ahead, Mia.
So I'll just mention that staff have seen some comments about this on social media, and it would be really helpful if the anonymous attendee could just give a little more context, maybe just some more information about what they're referring to and how Nestle is involved with our water supply.
Because currently, just to clarify, Nestle is totally not involved in water supply. Actually, our bylaws prohibit commercial use of the bottling of drinking water.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Yeah, so if you can clarify that at all, please type it in the Q&A there or in the chat, and we can potentially answer that. So then Dougal McCreef is asking, you mentioned that completing the metering program is assumed to reduce consumption by 30% from 2010 levels. The two scenarios you presented show that completing the meters reduced consumption by about 8% compared to not completing the meters. Please explain these two different figures.
I can do that. That's a technical question. The presentation I provided was the amount of water that would be required over the entire length of a summer meter over extended drought, 6-month period. That's different than the 30% that is the average amount on a daily basis during a summer period. that we use for in the other graph. So it is indeed not apples to apples comparison to do the 8% and the 13% because they are different metrics.
I'm just going to ask, we have not yet instituted volume-based charges for water. So that might have an effect too, I would guess, on the very large water users. Do you have a thought on that?
Yes, I do. We currently don't have any direction. SCRD never, I think, ever, the board never really had a good discussion about it yet. It's proven that water rate structure based on actual consumption is reducing is helping to bring the average consumption down. It also, and not only by the bigger water use, but larger water uses, by all the water users. It just promotes behavior will change because you'll see it in your bank account, the amount of water you're using. And it also is a good incentive for people to address their leaks, because otherwise they pay for water that's just flowing down the street.
Okay, so just back to kind of some of the more common questions that we see on our social media channels and that we've been asked before. And one here, why can't the SCRD develop more wells?
It's a good question. We can develop a lot more wells if we can find good spots on the coast where we can develop them. Because what we did last 2 years, we did groundwater monitoring, groundwater well development testing on several sites, and we had several instances where we just did not find any water where we're hoping to find it. So there might be more sites available on the coast, but it will cost a lot of money to find them. And developing water well fields is also costly, especially, for example, Langdale well field, as indicated, will cost about $5 million. So if you compare it to a metering program with a cost of $7 million, you might be lucky if you have the same capital return of investment for a well development versus metering program. And as indicated in the graph, I can show, if you allow me, Aidan, I can go back to one slide.
Yeah, go ahead.
And that is, no, I think you don't see. I'm not sure which slide you see right now. Do you see a slide at the moment or
No,
not?
we got no slides up right now, Remco. I can let you know as soon as we can see it.
Okay.
Saw it momentarily.
Okay. Okay. There. Sorry for this. This took me longer than expected. What you can see here is that the water metering program will cost about $8 per cubic meter to develop. So an extra cubic meter, an extra bathtub available of water for the community will cost us about $8. Developing more wells will cost, like the Langdale well field, will cost about $12 to $13 for the same amount of water. So currently, water metering program is just more cost efficient to develop, and operational cost of a well field are also significant. It will cost a lot of energy, a lot of hydro to develop wells and to pump all that water from those wells and over the mountains to where we are using it. And a water metering program will save water all over the system, which is way more efficient. Okay.
Thanks, Remco. Staying on the topic of water meters, we got an anonymous attendee here who's asking, I guess, about if water meters are installed and if they turn their hose on full blast versus slow, Will that affect their pricing? So maybe a good opportunity to speak about how that may work.
Mia, are you willing to take that? Can you take that one?
So I can repeat that, Mia. So essentially, they're asking if if the meters are installed, if they you turn the hose on full blast versus slow, will that affect their pricing?
Yeah, so I'll just reiterate that at this point we don't have a volumetric rate in our water bylaw. If that was something that the board wanted to bring forward, that's something they could direct staff to look into. Like most, we have some policy development in our work plan this year, and anytime we go out to open a bylaw, we want to get some input from the public. So I think if that's the path that the board wanted to explore, they would look for public feedback before changing any bylaws. And as for the question, in terms of having the water on slow or fast, I think the question is more about, or the answer I think would be about how much water you're using on a monthly basis.
Thank you, Mia. And I know somebody has their hand raised there. Did you want to go to a slide, Mia? Sorry.
No, I wanted to mention that Ivan's had his hand up for a while.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I'm not seeing it for some reason on my screen. So IT, if you could let Ivan in, that'd be much appreciated. Thank you. Hey, Ivan. Yeah, please go ahead and ask your question.
I really have two questions. And the first deals with the issue of when you developed your program for how much water the community needs. When you think about 200 to 300 cubic meters a year in usage, by I think it's 8% of the metered properties in the SCRD. Is that a number that's sort of the range that you're looking for, providing water to all the residents that will be metered in the Sunshine Coast Regional District? So when you look at the requirement for total water, would it be determined by a rate of somewhere between 200 and 300 cubic meters of water per year? That's the first question. Second question is, and this one would be for Remco for sure, and it's to do with the article on the April 16th Coast Reporter, where 9% of metered SCRD properties use 38% of the annual water. For example, how long has that been going on? And the second part of that is practically what will you be doing to kind of address that?
Thank you, Ivan, for both questions. I'll start with the last one. We based that graph, that information with the 9% that we're using, 38% of the 9% of the households that we're using more than 500 liters cubic meters a year. I have to say it correctly. We based it on our water meter data from last year. So it was based on the entire usage for all the properties between January 1st and December 31st. So that's one thing. And as acknowledged, there are some of those properties we identified since are having leaks. And so we'll connect with all the residents on a monthly basis, sometimes bi-monthly, that are having leaks. And on the Sunshine Coast, we're sending letters, we're following up with those. And that's what we'll do with these as well, to make sure that these leaks are resolved as soon as possible. And otherwise, we're contemplating on how to connect with the larger water users in general to notify them and to have discussion and engage with them on their water supply. And in terms of the actual target use per household that we're looking at, I don't have, that was your first question, Ivan, a good question. I have to apologize because I should know the number from the top of my head, but I don't have it. So I can see that it is, I think it's about a little bit above the 300, but it's in that range of cubic meters a year. So we'll make sure that that information is posted. It's already somewhere on our site, but we'll make sure that it is included in a more recent information that's presented on the site as well shortly.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry if we answered this, but that data that was provided through the Coast Reporter and in this presentation about the 9% and 38%, that's just looking at residential properties that are metered in 2020. So it's just from last year. It's in the most recent calendar year.
Hope that answers your questions, Ivan. So we've a couple more questions that have come in here. So Adam Shepard is asking, what is the split between industrial/commercial water use versus residential use?
It's a good question. In this presentation, we primarily currently focus on the residential water use. Commercial and industrial, we don't have a lot of industry on the coast that's using a lot of water. Larger water users on the coast are, for example, sports fields, some parks, the hospital we know is a large user. And there are some institutional facilities that are also using a lot of water, and some camps, summer camps, if they're in operations, like the one in Gibson or in House Sound, Langdale area, as well as the Rhodes Creek. But you can imagine if there's a lot of kids there, that the water use will be significant as well for short periods of time.
Go ahead, Director McMahon.
That said, since we don't have business licenses, presumably some of the residential properties are in fact businesses and we don't really know that. Would that be the case?
Correct, because it all, and the impact that will have is all dependent on the actual usage of those properties.
Perfect, thank you. And we got Kevin Purton, who's asking a question. In planning for protection of water sources and supply, do you consult with SCCF and other logging companies to incorporate ecosystem style management principles to maintain water integrity and even flows, etc.? Or do you carry out consultation at that level?
Thank you very much for the question. It's an interesting question. Yes, we are actively engaged in working with, at least our board is very actively engaged in working with BCTS and the Ministry for Natural and Natural Resource Operations to make sure that any licenses and or enforcement decisions that are made in the watersheds or along the coast are downstream water impacts are included in that. As you might know, there's currently no logging happening at all in the Chapman watershed, and there's a moratorium on it by the license holders, which is really benefiting the water protection for the Chapman Creek system. So, and we're really fortunate to have that situation.
Can I ask a clarifying question? My question to Kevin would be, are you talking about our drinking water sources or watersheds across the coast? And you can either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Kevin, you can just put that in the Q&A or else into the chat if you want. And then if you get back to us, we'll get back to you a little bit later. We have a question here from Rob, I guess, who's asking around enforcement. My neighbor has a veggie garden that they're building, but I don't see any rain catchment system in place. Will there be a tip line of sorts for concerned citizens to report water abuse?
So I guess my question would also be, are you talking about in the summer during water restrictions? If you are, we do have a complaint form on our website, but we don't have any catchment in place, for example. It depends what level of water restrictions we're at.
Is it only me or is Mia cutting out every now?
Cutting out.
I think
Okay.
Mia you just cut out there. I'll just jump on to another question, and then when Mia's connection cleans up there a wee bit, we can go back to you. We got a question there. Why does it take so long for new wells to be developed?
Good question. We would love to have it go quicker. But what the situation is that, for example, the Church Road well field, we started development and confirming the feasibility of that one in 2018. We first drilled the test well, the location, just to see, does it actually make sense here to actually develop a well field at this location? After that, we started working on the preparing for the provincial applications for provincial the water license that we need and other permits that we need, and we're still working through the process. So the development of a well field is not and to make the decision to invest, in this case, over $7 million to actually develop the well field is not a decision that we want to make easily. We don't want to make a hasty decision and 2 years down the road think, oops, that's a lot of money wasted. We don't want to do a good job. Provincial approval processes also take time. We are pushing the provinces hard as we can to make quick decisions, but we also want them to make good decisions so that we know that ecosystem rights are protected and other cultural and archaeological interests are protected, as well as that other users in the area are not impacted by us drilling a well in the area. So there's a lot of hoops for us to jump through, and we want to do it right, and we don't want to make misinvestments.
Perfect. Thank you, Remco. Mia, we might just come back to you just to finish that answer. So just the question again was Rob was speaking about his neighbor who has a veggie garden and no rain catchment system in place. And Rob was wondering whether there'd be a tip line of sorts for concerned citizens to contact the SCRD if they have any concerns about water use, I guess, in their neighbor's garden. So
absolutely. Hi, Rob. I'm so sorry. Yes, I don't know why that happened, but anyhow, there you go. So I mentioned earlier that the difference would be, well, one, we don't have any requirements. We encourage residents to have rainwater harvesting systems. We have a rebate program in place every year. We're currently accepting applications, but it's not mandatory to water your garden in the summer with rainwater. It depends on the stage of restrictions that we're at during the summer. So of course, if we're outside of higher water restriction levels, you can water your garden. But as the summer proceeds, of course, there are restrictions in place, and either you would stop watering your garden, and if you do have a rain system in place, we do have on our website and more information where you can contact us if you do have a complaint.
Yeah, and that's scrd.ca/water. That's where you can go, and that's a kind of like the one area where everything else branches off to. Director McMahon, you had your hand up there. I just want to come to you.
Yeah, I felt like I had to defend those of us with veggie gardens and no rainwater catchment system. So you need to look at what the stages are of the watering restrictions, but I go out there and I water my vegetables by hand. And during the big stage 4, I was one of those people. I had the bucket in the shower with me and I was carrying the water out to try and save the last of my poor dying vegetables. So I'm really looking forward to not going to stage 4 again.
Well,
yes, absolutely, I agree.
Yeah. And one thing to note, a couple of years ago, we adjusted the water restriction or the watering use schedules so that it prioritized food over lawns and over even more so over ornamentals, and which I know is a bit of a ornamentals can cost a lot of money too, but food is the primary focus. So food bearing plants, trees, shrubs are a priority over lawns.
Perfect. Thank you. So we got the anonymous attendee would like to thank you, Mia, for your answer. And then we got Doug, who's asked a question here saying the province makes money on forestry and mining, not on clean drinking water. Great that we are tapping into clean drinking water aquifers. What is the impact of logging and gravel pit operations on aquifer supply? And whoever wants to take this, it might be if we could maybe just give a little explanation for folks on what an aquifer is, just to provide a little bit more context, if that's okay.
Okay, I will take that one. An aquifer is a body of water, an amount of water that's under the ground, underground, and some people call it it's the underground river of water that's flowing down a mountain. But it's an amount of water that's flowing down the mountain towards down a mountain, or is within the flat area available underneath that area where you can tap into. And usually aquifers are defined by, for example, there's a boundary, there's a rock formation, so water is only flowing on the left side of the rock formation. So then there's a difference between so you can have two aquifers flowing down one mountain. Forestry, as well as mining operations, any type of sort of land use might have an impact on the amount of water that's coming into an aquifer. But just like urban development does, there is a lot of issues on the coast where rain water that used to go into what we used to infiltrate in the ground is now, because everything is developed, is now flowing on the surface, on the roads, into stormwater drains and into creeks, and that way to the ocean where it used to go to aquifers. So you can actually say that all type of land use development will have some sort of impact on how water is distributed over creeks and aquifers. And yes, logging, mining, they will have their impact as well. And I agree, it is really the jurisdiction primarily of the province to regulate that, and not of the SCRD for logging and mining.
So we've had some clarification on this question just from Kevin. So Kevin's question earlier, I believe Mia, it was you who's asking Kevin. So Kevin's question earlier was, in planning for protection of water sources and supply, do you consult with FCCF and other logging companies to incorporate ecosystem style management principles to maintain water integrity and even flows, etc.? Or do you carry out consultation at that level? So as a follow-up, what Kevin has said is, watersheds in general on the coast, and how we care for the water supply for general use by anyone anywhere. So not wanting to see erosion, flash flooding, and high rates of runoff, etc. Can I take that one, Mia?
Yeah, will you take that one?
I think the only piece that I want to add, my connection is not as great. I've moved offices, that's why. Is it working now?
Yeah, go ahead, Mia.
Okay, I think all I wanted to add was a really interesting question and comment. There is a tactic and objective in our strategic plan to look at watershed protection, and it's something that the SCRD staff will be looking at this year. It was also a piece that was approved in our budget, and that we're hoping to go on later this year. So stay tuned. There will be more on our website in the coming months, and about asking that question of what do we do about the watersheds that are outside of the drinking water sources.
So just to follow on, I think from the question earlier that had been asked about veggie gardens and watering them, We've had an anonymous attendee who said, great point, Laurie, on earlier. Does growing cannabis qualify as growing food, etc., in terms of what qualifies as acceptable water use?
Only if you eat it.
Well, it's an interesting question. The cannabis issue is really complicated because there's of course, there is the agricultural cannabis that is being grown. There's a number of cannabis grow ops that are within households, growing within households. So there is a lot of water usage. We're a little bit in a I'm going to say a vacuum with some of the regulations federally and provincially around some cannabis regulation that we're looking at still. So yeah, and I hear a lot from residents on their concerns about how much cannabis does take out of our water system and is being used, especially within residential zones. So that is still something that we are looking at, and hopefully we can have a bit of a solution around that. But it's a tough one, and it's not a food source, so it's an economic and in some cases a medical necessity. So it's a complicated legal issue as well.
Perfect, thank you. So something that's coming up here is water restrictions. So we got stage 1 coming in May 1st. We issued a news release on that there about 2 weeks ago, and we got some information for folks who are interested to learn more on that on our website. The question is asking, why are they coming into effect on May 1st?
I can take that one. The May 1 watering restrictions is actually something that's included in our bylaw to ensure that the May 1st watering restrictions, if you take a close look at it, actually the only thing that it's doing is promoting efficient use of the water for outdoor watering. It's not prohibiting any use. It's not saying you can't do one thing at all. It is primarily focused on lawn watering to make sure that lawns are not overwatered. Actually, that's what stage 1 is doing. Stage 2, that's where really some more actually restrictions and impacts on users are coming into force. So stage 1 is the minimum, and that's why it's included in the bylaw as just promoting general good behavior in terms of water use on the coast.
Perfect. Thank you, Remco. So just to go back to, sorry, beg your pardon, go ahead, Director McMahon.
Well, I'm off topic. I wanted to talk a little bit more, though, about the governance issues and the jurisdictional issues around water, because it is very complicated, right? The water falls on the mountains and it rolls down into the aquifers and into our streams and creeks, and we treat all these things as different when they're all part of a natural system. And we have a lot of concerns about things like the cumulative impacts of decisions that are made around land use. And they're made by different ministries, different levels of government, and these ministries and levels of government don't necessarily connect with each other, and then they don't connect with the long-term outcomes. And so there is a lot of work to be done here, but I do think that a regional growth strategy is one of the ways that we can start to move forward with thinking on a bigger level. We do not have one. We don't have a regional land use plan. So and another thing we're looking at is watershed governance models. Which are being tried in various ways across the province. And Remco could say more about that, but we've got to change the way that we make decisions so that we get better outcomes.
if you're okay to take that, Remco, maybe just give a little explanation again, just kind of about, about what a watershed is and how we utilize them, and then around governance as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So watersheds, just like aquifers, but the watershed is really the area. If I always refer to watershed is walk to a stream, look upstream, and all the water. The watershed is actually all the water, every raindrop that falls within an area and that ends up at the spot where you're standing. So it's usually an area in the mountains, and it all flows down to one point where you're standing. And we have thousands. We actually recently we did an inventory of how many watersheds we have from the coast, but there are thousands. And within the SCRD jurisdiction, most of them are, of course, along the inlets, but we have a substantial amount also along the coast. So one of the things that we're currently are exploring is how would it look like if the SCRD would start to get involved in the management of watersheds in general? Where would we focus on? Only those along the coast itself, or within the entire SCRD jurisdiction, only the ones that are developed or not? And currently, we only have a limited amount of authority ourselves to impact those watersheds. A lot of those watersheds, as I just indicated, are related to forestry, for example, decisions that are outside of our current mandate. And to the point of Director McMahon, that's where watershed governance, working together with other agencies, with our partners here on the coast, both Town of Gibson's, the Sechelt, but also the Shisha Nation, as well as the Squamish Nation. How can we work together to better and protect our aquifers and watersheds on the coast for the future?
Perfect, thank you. Another question here is just in regards to SCRD. So what are we doing to find and address leaks in our own water system?
Thank you for the question. That's a great question. I'm more than happy to answer that, because we get asked that question a lot. And because the water metering program really focuses on private leaks, our own system is not, we're doing a lot to find leaks in our own system, and we're fixing a lot of leaks in our own system. But we can also always do better. So as part of this year's budget, early this year, the board approved for us to purchase some high-tech new tools to listen to. That's actually what it is. We put two ears sensors onto hydrants, fire hydrants, and we can listen if there are leaks in our mains in between those hydrants. And the board also approved some additional staff capacity for us to do a pilot in North Bender, South Bender, and regional water system to see how well the system works, and what are and how many leaks we can identify in our own system, and potentially in some private connections as well along those systems. But we know that the regional water system, so that's the Chapman system, that's the majority of the coast. Water systems are pretty new, so we don't expect a lot of leaks in that area. But we know that, especially in North South Bender, the water mains are older, and we're trying to replace them as soon as we can. But it's cost a lot of money, and hence there is still some good chunk of older mains there that are where we suspect that there will be some leaks in.
Perfect, thank you. We got about 10 minutes left, so if folks would like to keep the questions coming in before we go around for some closing remarks. And Mia, did you have something to add there? Sorry, I just saw you unmuted yourself.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, I don't think anyone, including the SCRD, wants to waste water unknowingly. And I think that's why we get a lot of great feedback about our leak notification program. We sent out over 800 letters last year out of the 6,200 metered properties. So that's a little over 10% of properties had leaks. And same with the SCRD. It's like, I guess there's that, if you don't have the information, it's hard to fix those problems. And I think that's a big part of the water meter program and the tools that Remco was talking about is we need to find those problems and make those efforts to fix those leaks.
Perfect. We got another question here. Just this is again something which kind of comes up quite a lot for us, and it's around loans. And it's asking, why does the SCRD need a loan for most capital projects?
I will I will again take that one. We don't need loans for all our projects. However, for the major ones, we could pay them off by taxes. Only it would really spike the amount of our tax increases. It would really require a significant amount of tax increases above what we feel that is reasonable for the community. And that's why a loan, especially because as a municipality, we can get loans at a very good interest rate through a municipal finance authority. It's way more cost effective for us to do it that way, and we can avoid big tax increases for the community that way.
Anything to add, Chair Pratt or Director McMahon? No?
No, that's one of those questions that you wish our CFO was here to help answer, or the corporate officer, because it speaks to a lot of different things, such as the debt that we carry and our debt ratio, as well as our provincial regulations on at what level we can go for loans for and everything. And there's a lot of technical knowledge there that we don't necessarily have at our fingertips that our CFO and corporate officer do. So
the only thing I would like to add is we only go for a loan if we really feel that it is cost effective for the SCRD and or required for the SCRD to do so. We try to prevent it as much as possible. We're spending it's not uncommon for us to spend millions of dollars on infrastructure projects just from our own reserves, with our own funds without a loan. So if we can do that, yes, we'll do that. But sometimes it's just the instant investment is just too big for us to carry.
Mm-hmm. And we may look like we have a lot in reserves collectively, but the way financing works with a regional district is if you're paying for something within the water system, or if you need money in the water system, you can't take it from recreation. If there's extra money in recreation, we're very siloed that way. If you don't, you have to keep the money within the service that it's intended. Reserves can't be put into different functions. So it's one of the intricacies with a regional district funding model that a municipality or a school district don't necessarily have to, they're not as concerned about, because they can move line items around a little bit more than we can in the budgeting process.
Perfect, thank you. We've got a question here. It's just coming from an anonymous attendee, and they're asking, do you have a sense of how much money the SCRD may be able to access from provincial and/or federal grant funds to help pay for water service infrastructure costs once we have water meters installed?
I can start with that question, answering the question. There are provincial grant opportunities. Every now and then there is an opportunity available. And we're constantly looking for opportunities and see what kind of projects would be best as an SCRD to apply. Sometimes water supply expansion, sometimes it is, for example, wastewater treatment plant, or other grants for, let's say, solar panel installations. So we're nonstop looking for grant opportunities, and yes, there are grants still available for water supply. The province is more and more asking local governments to have meters in place as a requirement, or as it will benefit us in their ranking of grants if we have water meters in place. if we don't have them in place, because they consider it
One
almost
sec.
best practice to have them in place. So if we don't have them in place, our chance of actually attracting those grants, getting those grants will be way more limited. So that's why, and it was recently confirmed by the province as well, is that it is really in our own benefit to have the meters installed prior to us applying for water supply expansion grants.
Thank you, Remco. We did have a comment earlier from Rob in the chat, and he did ask, will there be a chance to ask questions about, as he deemed the BC Ferries latest money grab. So just ask Rob that if he does want to, we did say that we would get to that at the end. And if he does have a question to please post it into the chat. And as I said, we'll get that to the end. For now, we're going to stick to water. And, you know, something which comes up quite often again is, you know, is leaks in private connections, and how big an issue is that across the coast right now?
Mia, are you okay with taking a first crack at it?
So do you mean leaks on the private side? That's the question?
Yeah, so, sorry, leaks on private properties.
Yeah, absolutely. So we only have information about the properties that we meter. We don't know anything about properties in the District of Sechelt area because they don't have water meters. But what we do know about properties in the more rural areas are that, as I mentioned earlier, last year we sent out, I think it was 858 notification letters out of the 6,200 metered properties. So that's just a little over 10% had leaks. And some of those leaks are resolved throughout the year. Some properties we send multiple letters to and follow up with them. In terms of the size of the leak, it can really vary, of course, and how fast it grows. I'll also mention something that Remco brought up in his presentation was that we found on average, we looked last year, that a house with a leak or property with a leak uses up to 4 times more than the average house. Sometimes in certain areas, we saw that it was up to 6 or even more times than that. So just to give you an idea of the scope, that a property with a leak can really use a lot more water than the average.
Anything to add to that, anybody? Or we can keep on. So we've got no more questions in the Q&A here, and I think we've covered off kind of most of the more common themes. Unless there's anything in particular that I've missed there, Mia or Remco, you guys are living this each and every day, right? So what I want to do is I just want to go around to the panel very quickly, just for some closing thoughts. And I know, Mia, you have a survey that you'd like to send people to afterwards. So we'll maybe start with you, Mia, and then to you, Remco, then to you, Director McMahon, and then to you, Chair Pratt, then just to close the session, if that works okay for everybody.
Sure, I'll start off by saying I just want to thank everyone for attending. This is, again, our first Let's Talk Water event of the year. We'll be having another one in May on the water meter program. We'll be sharing information about that shortly. We're really interested about how we did, and we'll be posting, or it's already on our website. So it's scrd.ca/Let's Talk Water. It's in the public participation area. We'll share the link shortly. And there's just a few questions, and we'd be really interested in your feedback about what you'd like to know more about and just how useful you found this information. I'll pass it over.
Thanks, Mia. I just shared the link in the group there for everybody. So please check it out and share your thoughts on there, and we'll go over to you, Remco.
Thank you, Aidan. Thanks for me as well for everybody watching this video. And if you have any questions about the information presented, feel free to leave the questions at letstalkscrd.ca/water, or just give us a call or send us an email. We're more than happy to provide you with questions, give you a call back and have a discussion. We're always there to assist. Thank you.
And Director McMahon.
Sure. Well, it's my turn to pontificate. Okay, that's cool. I am really, really happy to see a lot of these water projects moving forward. One of the things that has concerned me for years is that so much of the Sunshine Coast is reliant on the Chapman Creek watershed, and 95% reliant on that one small creek. And that's not only a very precarious situation to be in, it's not just our water. It belongs to the trees and the fish, the salmon run. You know, we don't have the right to rob all of the water out of that one watershed. So I'm really happy to see us moving ahead and diversifying our sources of water. It's going to be a good news story for everyone. Thanks.
And Chair Pratt, if you want to close it out for us, there doesn't seem to be any more questions. There's a couple of comments going in there, which,
okay.
Which were,
terrific. Well, thank you so much to everyone that attended tonight, and thank you very much to our panel for being here with us to speak about water and speak about the approach that we are taking here at the Sunshine Coast Regional District. We know it's a complicated issue. We know it is an expensive, it's an expensive challenge that we have ahead of us. We know that these utility bills and these tax increases are not easy to take and to see. And we hear you, and we just want you to know that it is going into increasing our infrastructure, increasing our water supply. There's a lot of investment that needs to be done in order to make sure that we do have proper water supply here on the Sunshine Coast, as well as safeguard it for all of the other beings that need it, as well, as Director McMahon mentioned. And so we're working really hard to make this happen for you. And please make sure that you're checking out the participation plan, and also let us know your thoughts. We're going to be continuing to work for you to make sure that this is a precious resource that you have confidence that when you turn your tap on, it's going to be clean and good for you to drink. So thank you all for being here.
thank you, everybody. And I just encourage everybody to keep their eye on scrd.ca/water, where we'll be posting further information about the next session that we'll be doing closer to the end of May. And as well as that, check out our new engagement platform, which is scrd.ca/let's talk, where we have lots of great information on all of the ongoing water projects, and also an opportunity for you to go ahead and to have your say and to ask questions about each of them. And as Mia mentioned earlier, that's where the questionnaire survey is on up there from today's session. So thank you, everybody, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks, unless anybody else has anything to add.
This presentation will be available on YouTube. So if you know somebody that missed this presentation but might you suggested, you can always forward the link to anybody you know who you think this presentation might like to see as well.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone.